I hereby call this meeting to order and would like to thank our tonight's presenters and everyone joining us in person and by live stream. We thank you for being here. We'll begin with the Pledge of Allegiance, which will be led by Dwayne Rollins. Dwayne, come on forward.
Ready to begin?
Thank you. All of our board members are present, and there are a few addendum materials with the following topics. We got the HR report, food service free and reduced eligibility report, Head Start monthly program report, written comment, media report, and community relations update, camp request, and preliminary budget materials. I would entertain a motion to approve the agenda with the addendum.
I move that we approve the agenda with, as presented.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any
I wondered one question about it.
Okay.
I just noticed there wasn't a Highland update on it, on the agenda. Is there any way to add that? Or is,
Oh, it's the first one in Mr. Ball's report.
oh, it's under his report? Okay,
Yes.
thank you.
You're
Thank
welcome.
you. Yes, I approve.
Okay, sorry, I forgot to ask for discussion.
No, that's okay. That was just my question. So.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? That motion is passed. Next on the agenda is approve the minutes. I would entertain a motion to approve the following minutes as presented. Board work session for April 11th and regular board meeting April 18th. Is there a motion?
I move that we approve the minutes for the board work session on April 11th and the regular board meeting on April 18th.
Is there a second?
A second?
Any discussion? Those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion also passed. Next on the agenda is approve the consent agenda, which includes authorizing the payment of claims, authorizing the supplemental financial information, and approving the human resource activities as amended. Is there a motion?
I can't see my screen.
I move that we approve the consent agenda as
Okay,
presented.
is there a second?
I'll second.
Sorry, I was at the bottom.
Is there any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? That motion passed. Next on the agenda are the self-explanatory reports, which include the Idaho General Fund Revenue Report, the Food Service Free and Reduced Meal Eligibility Report, the final bus ridership report, Head Start Monthly Report, Program Report, Student Enrollment Report, Kindergarten Counts, year-end nursery acuity report, and student suspension report. And I guess that's what's on the agenda. Next on the agenda is recognitions, which will be given by Courtney Fisher.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, trustees, Dr. Howell, and Ms. Johnson. Tonight, we will recognize several individuals who, through their actions, support and embody our district's mission to think more, learn more, and be more together. Our CAKE Awards are up first. Our district believes that a safe, supportive, and caring and respectful environment is critical to student learning. The School District 25 Education Foundation, in partnership with McDonald's, supports the Learner of the Month award to recognize one elementary learner and one secondary learner from our district from October through May. The CAKE Award celebrates positive character, attitude, kindness, and encouragement toward others. In addition to being recognized here tonight with you at the monthly board meetings, the recipients also receive a baking kit to make at home with their families and special treats delivered to their classroom to be enjoyed with and among their peers. Nominations for the CAKE Award are submitted by a teacher who has observed the nominee's behavior and also approved by the school's principal. So first up, we have our May CAKE Award for our Elementary Learner of the Month. Please help me welcome Bryson Rawlings to the podium. And his teacher, Ms. Kristen Sluter. Is Ms. Sluter here? Oh, she was unable to come? Wait, oh, there you are. If you just want to kind of just stand to the side of the podium, just facing our board. Okay, so Thank you for joining us here tonight, Bryson. Bryson is a fourth grade learner at Wilcox Elementary, and Miss Sluter is his teacher. In her nomination letter, Miss Sluter wrote, "I have been watching Bryson Rawlings over the last few years as an example of kindness, inclusion, and respect. It started in the cafeteria during lunchtime. If you have ever helped in the schools at this time, you know it is a feeding frenzy. Most students grab a tray, get their food, and sometimes there's pushing and shoving, laughing or crying, but always lots of noise and movement. Every day there is a good amount of surprising students who would shock you with their good manners, saying please and thank you. Bryson was one of these shining stars. It was always a pleasure to see him coming through the door. His smile, laughter, and kind words helped calm me after feeling the mania of the midday meal. Not only is he kind, he works hard in his classes and tries his best to get good grades. He is good at sports and is involved with extracurricular activities. There's more. I have not had the pleasure of teaching Mr. Rawlings. I am a special educator who has had students in his classes throughout the years. I have seen his friendship with other students. I have seen his kindness toward others who might be different. I have seen him helping other students who might need a little more assistance when the teacher is busy. Recently, I had a mother of one of my students relay her own experience with Bryson. Her son is in kindergarten and rides the same bus as Bryson. Instead of being bothered by his younger schoolmate, Bryson makes sure he gets home safely every day. We recently had a random snowstorm that was intense. The wind was blowing, and this mother had another younger child at home sleeping. She was worried about her son getting home in the weather. As she watched and waited for his arrival, she saw Bryson leading her son home in the snowstorm by his backpack strap. The snow was hitting her son's face, so he was ducking and keeping his eyes closed. At one point, she saw her son drop the strap and start to panic. Bryson stopped and handed the strap back to him and continued leading him home until he was safe and sound. As she told me this story, tears of joy came to her eyes. This older boy always goes above and beyond for her son. She wished she could do something to show her thanks and gratitude. I was so pleased to hear of this unusual example of compassion and sharing, and the example set by a fourth grade young man to a kindergarten little boy. Way to go, Bryson. Thank you for all you do and your help with others. So in addition to being recognized here, I know that's kind of made me emotional reading that. You get this certificate. And also we have a cupcake kit for you and also a gift card from McDonald's. And then $50 to your library in your name, where you'll get to help your media clerk at your school pick out those names, and you'll get to pick out those books, and you'll get to write your name in there. So thank you so much for being such a wonderful example of kindness and encouragement at your school, and congratulations. As well. I know.
Good job, young man.
You can shake Dad's hand too. And thank you, Ms. Sluter, for the wonderfully descriptive nomination. I loved reading that and reading it out loud tonight. Next up, we have our May Cake Award for our Secondary Learner of the Month. Please help me welcome Finley Evans to the podium, along with his teacher, Miss Lindsay Matthews. Is Miss Matthews here? Hi, how are you tonight? Okay, thank you so much, both of you, for being here tonight. Finley is in the 6th grade at Alameda Middle School, and he was nominated by Miss Lindsay Matthews. And in her nomination letter, Miss Matthews wrote, Finley is impressively upbeat, outgoing, and intelligent. He is a kid who will greet and welcome anyone and everyone. He is a kid who will genuinely ask about your day and then engage in a full-blown conversation with your response. Finley cares about everyone he meets. He treats all his peers with patience and kindness. I think Finley considers everyone he meets a friend. He is willing to help any of his peers in class or even in the hallway. Finley actively participates in discussions, answering questions and group projects, and is eager and attentive to each and every one of our lessons. Everyone who knows Finley looks forward to seeing him, and when he is out, his absence is noticed in each classroom. Finley has a warmth about him that is truly unique to his age. So Finley, we want to congratulate you for the example that you set for your peers with this. You'll also be able to have a cupcake kit, and we have that waiting for you. We'll make sure that gets to you as you leave the building tonight, and make it home with your family. And then you and your teacher will both receive a gift card courtesy of McDonald's, who's our partnership for this award. And then your school will receive a $50 donation in your name to choose books for your library. So thank you so much for your example.
So, okay. Thank you for your.
Keep up the good work.
Thanks.
It's wonderful every month to get to hear some of these stories and get to know our learners individually. Next up, we have our May Employee of the Month, which is our PIES Award. The Employee of the Month is our PIES Award, recognizes employees who positively influence educational success. The award is for employees who go above and beyond in that effort, and Lookout Credit Union partners with us in providing this award. So tonight, I'd like to welcome Ms. Terry Ransbottom to the podium. And we're going to have a whole lot of people join you up here because you received 9 nominations, which I think might be a record in my time here. So would also join me at the podium Lori, Katie, Rachel, Courtney, Joni, Marissa, Bobby Joe, Elizabeth, and Carrie. And I think I saw Ms. Presswitch back there. You are also welcome to join us. So these wonderful people and colleagues all took the time to submit a nomination for Ms. Ransbottom. So I just want to read you a little bit from each of those nominations. Terry is the media clerk at Tyhee Elementary School. And if you've ever been to the Tyhee Elementary School Media Center, every single word here tonight is true. I've experienced it myself. Thank you all for being here tonight. The theme across every nomination is how Ms. Ransbottom goes above and beyond in everything she does, from matching learners with books and the topics that they are passionate about, to being a friend and a confidant to other Tyhee staff members. That was said in every single nomination, so I won't repeat that. But in her nomination, Ms. Van Leuven wrote, "Terry's quite possibly the kindest person I've ever met. She has the patience of a saint and is the first face many of our kids see in the morning as she helps at drop-off. She always has a smile and a word of encouragement for students and teachers alike. She knows every book on her shelves and is always ready to offer recommendations. Most important, Terry knows every child in the school by name, which is no small accomplishment as we have more than 500 learners. She's able to greet every one of them by name whenever she sees them in the library or in the halls." That's really important. Mrs. Davis wrote, "Terry is the sweetest person and is always so kind and loving. She always lends a listening ear and shows kindness and compassion. She is so amazing and we are so blessed to have her at our school." Mrs. Goff wrote, "Terry is an incredible light to our building. She remembers my learners' names and even the books they like. She has a fantastic ability to make everyone feel important and loved." Mrs. Holverson wrote, "Terry's amazing and hardworking. She works hard to get books we ask her to put in the library. She is amazing with the learners. She is great at building relationships with all of the learners, and she always tries to get the learners excited to read." Mrs. Bear wrote, "Terry works hard to make our library a place where all students feel welcome and comfortable. She is always researching and finding new books to keep our library an exciting place for the students to visit. Students know they can come to her and she will help them find the perfect book for them. She is such a caring person and we are truly blessed to have her at our school." Mrs. Kent wrote, "Terry's an incredible person. Tyhee is a big school and she knows all of our learners and greets them by name. She provides them with reading suggestions to try, and because she knows the learners so well, she is usually spot on. The library is a happy place because of her. She is kind-hearted, knowledgeable, dependable, and always willing to lend a hand when needed." Ms. Southwick wrote, "Terry is so positive with staff and students. She always makes sure everyone feels loved and included and works hard to develop relationships that last." Ms. Bunger wrote, "Terry is the world's best librarian. She works with every single teacher and every student to help them find the right books to read. She is kind, loving, and patient with everyone. She is a great listener and always willing to give suggestions or recommendations to help teachers with their lesson planning and research. Our school would not be the same without her." And Ms. Dennis wrote, "Terry is the backbone of our wonderful staff. I think the thing that amazes me the most about Ms. Ransbottom is her ability to see the best in each child. I remember one time being in the library with a child who was sometimes difficult in class, and she turned to me and mentioned how she loved his sweet, sweet spirit. It was a great lesson to me to look past the behaviors that I desire and see the actual child." So thank you so much for your example. Thank you all much for your wonderful words and for uplifting your colleague who positively influences educational success in our district, and thank you for the example that you set. You receive this certificate as well as $50 from Lookout Credit Union, who's our partner in this, and then you guys get to split $20. Maybe bring donuts.
Spend it all at one place, yeah.
So thank you so much. If you will let our board congratulate you as well. Thank you for the nomination. Our board would love to say hello to all
Can't
of
beat
you.
a good librarian. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you.
Hey, how are you? Good, how are you? Good. Thanks.
And that concludes our recognitions. I know, now you know why this
so
is the
wonderful.
favorite part of my job is sharing these
Right.
stories with you all each month. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Courtney.
Then the room clears.
Okay, next on the agenda is public written comment on topics not pertinent to the agenda action items. Did we get anything?
There is on the agenda. There's that on the agenda, there's written comment.
Okay, say that again.
There's written comment in the agenda.
Okay.
So it's in the packet now.
Okay, there is written comment in the addendum. Okay, we'll now move on to reports. We will begin with the student representative reports, and we will begin with a representative from Highland High School. Or whoever's here.
I think I'm the only one.
Okay, come and introduce yourself and tell us where you're from.
Okay. All right, 1 sec, let me pull up the name.
My name is Marin Brock, and I'm from Pocatello High School, and I am the junior class president at Pokey. Last week, we celebrated our teachers for Teacher Appreciation Week with breakfast, lunch, and gave them Pocatello Thunder book bags that the student government made themselves. We are wrapping up our Make-A-Wish fundraising and have raised almost $4,000 for the tree house for our Paisley, our Make-A-Wish kid. We are excited to cheer on our softball team, who is currently ranked #1 in the state. They are undefeated and district champions. Our baseball team is also headed to state and are district champions. Our boys track team is also district champions and are headed to state. We have several girls track stars also headed to state, and 3 tennis players are going to state. We are currently participating in Unity Week, our fentanyl awareness campaign with Chief Shy and Mayor Blad. Tomorrow we will be hosting movie night in the auditorium at 7 p.m. All are invited to come. Prior to the movie, we'll be showing the fentanyl video we created. Thank you.
What's the
Thank you.
movie? What movie are they watching?
So they created it.
Honestly,
Oh,
what was it? What?
oh, there you go. Great.
Yes. Yes, Indiana Jones is, I've never seen Indiana Jones, so.
Oh, I'm feeling it.
Thank you very much.
Clearly, the movie's not the point of view.
Okay. Okay, next we have the media report and community relations update provided by Courtney Fisher.
Brenda said, not quite as fun as my last report, but we still have some great things to share. So in your board addendum is the media and community relations report. Most of it's self-explanatory, but I want to draw your attention to a couple things. Most specifically, in your packet are all the links to the articles, so I always encourage you to look through those. There's some great things not only locally, but across the region and the state. We also track some national stories as well. Headlines of interest, which also made some national news, was the fire at Highland, but we also received some really positive community kind of stories around that incident too, that were uplifting in the face of that event. Our live stream and our board meetings and our press conferences are of particular interest this month. So on April 18th, our regular board meeting, we had 225 views, which was substantially higher than the previous month. April 21st, the press conference at Pocatello City Hall had 8,500 views. Our press conference that we hosted here at the school district in the boardroom had 3,400 views. And then our meeting for special action regarding Highland plans had 544 views. And then this last week's work session had 178 views. So those got really good traction. Social media, we continue to gain about 300 followers on Facebook every month, so we're just shy of 12,000 followers on Facebook. And we've also almost to 500 subscribers on YouTube, so that really jumped through the Highland incident, and just shy of 500 followers on Instagram, and 1,300 on 500 on Twitter, 1,300 on Instagram. Our website also gave me some really good data to show that our crisis communications, when we're really trying to get urgent communications out to our families, is really working. You can see that our homepage views were 38,000. Our urgent communications were 8,900. That really goes directly to our parents, but we're using our website as kind of a redundancy in our communications to make sure that if people didn't happen to see the message and they come to the website, they still have that information accessible right at their fingertips. So that's been a really good tool for us. Calendar is always right up there, and then the fire updates page was at almost 5,000 hits. So again, we know that when there's a hot topic, people can easily access that information. I'm really pleased. We're about a year in to our website having been launched, and it's been working really, really well for us. It is a source of official information for us. We post everything there that we post on Facebook, and so I really feel like it's having a great impact on us driving that narrative, reducing rumors when we have big things happen in the district, and people know where to go for that official source of information that they need. It's working so well that Cammie, who does the website management for the communications department, she's going to be presenting with Final Sight tomorrow about something. She was invited because we're utilizing all of the tools so well that they invited her along with 5 other panelists to kind of share some of that hot topics and lessons learned and aha moments over the last year. So it's been a tool that has been really, really useful for us. In the communications and community relations world, some of our achievements, we did just publish an Academic State Champions. I included that link in your packet. It's a really impressive list of academic state champions that we have in our district over the course of the past 4 or 5 years. So I encourage you to take a look at that link as well. We just announced the Simplot Inspirational Teacher of the Year on May 5th. The Simplot Education Council did that just a little bit different this year. Normally they name one Inspirational Teacher of the Year. This year they did 18 finalists, 5 finalists in each category from elementary, middle school, and high school, and then 1 actual inspirational teacher from each of those categories. Each finalist received $100, and each inspirational teacher in each category received $500 on behalf of the council. And those this year were from Todd Praska from Pocatello High School, Laura Hughes from Franklin Middle School, and Sherry Page from Chubbuck Elementary School. So that was really fun. Each school had their own kind of special. They were all different ceremonies, from a fun run to an assembly to just a meeting in Pocatello High School's Media Center. So it was really fun to see how the staff celebrated that accomplishment. We just completed Idaho Gives, and the School District 25 Education Foundation raised $11,255, which includes a matching donation of $5,000 from Lookout Credit Union. The campaign had 48 donors and reached 75% of our goal, so we were really pleased in the midst of that Highland fire, which kind of distracted all of us. In the meantime, we still were really, really close to reaching our goal, so I'm pretty pleased with that result. We also just celebrated Educator Appreciation Week last week, and I included a link in your addendum to a video that doesn't show every single celebration, but it just shows kind of a sampling of what happened across the district, including the $20 gift card that we gave on behalf of the board and district administration to every single educator and staff member in our district. So thank you very much. That concludes my report.
Thank you. Okay, now we'll move on to curriculum and instruction, school safety and athletics. We'll start with A.J. Watson, who will report on the developmental kindergarten program.
Good evening, board members. As we discussed at the work session last week, you have an action item on your agenda for a developmental elementary kindergarten program. Just as an overview, we have identified a need for an additional need for kindergarten learners who require a higher level of support and resources to be successful in a classroom environment. This program would assist learners as they focus on and develop the necessary skills, the necessary social skills and behaviors, while providing a higher level of support for emotional needs, productive play, academic structure, and positive peer and adult interactions. They would learn these skills in a small and more structured environment as kindergartners, and the hope is that as they improve these skills, they can transition fully into the classroom, or transition throughout time into the classroom and make a full transition into a first grade classroom as they learn and acquire these skills. I know we talked a lot more about it in the work session and went more into detail, but do you have any additional questions or other things before you take action on that tonight?
I just would like to, before we approve it, I would like to have the criteria for who would go to that, because I think we're gonna have some parents that are upsetty spaghetti if their kids are not going to their neighborhood school. And they'll need to know exactly why and exactly when they will. You know, okay, so why, you know, this is why, and then when they meet that, they will go back, instead of feeling like their child maybe got forgotten and left there.
And this would be based on parent approval as well, so we would explain to them, the parent, or to the parents, what the program involved and the purpose behind that. A lot of it would be developing those skills that are needed and necessary to be successful in a classroom setting. So we would definitely, parents would be a part of this process and be able to make that final determination in terms of if they wanted, it would have to be with parent approval. So they would only be allowed to, I mean, we would only take those that were approved by the parents to go into the program. It would give them another option, an opportunity, because sometimes parents are looking for something in terms of what else can we do, because they are not being successful in the kindergarten classroom. So this would give them another choice and opportunity to help prepare them for and learn those skills that they need.
And then who identifies the child? I mean,
So we have a
I guess
district-
that's the part that,
Yes.
This even came up, you know, even during the work session. I mean, I see that you're in the process of researching. I mean, there just feels like there's still a lot of,
So we have done the
Yes,
research, we just
let's
haven't brought it
talk about
to the board yet, and we've looked into it. We've been talking about it since we identified this at the beginning of the year. We had at our first, we have what's called a district intervention team, and it's an elementary group made up of administrators and staff members from the elementary group, including special education individuals. And we meet regularly, once a month at least, to identify learners, whether it's behavioral or special education needs for our extended resource programs and other special programs that we have in our district, for example, Turning Point for our elementary learners. And so it would be an extension of the district intervention team. And they would meet, and we would actually go out for this process. We'd go out and do observations. So they would start in a regular kindergarten classroom, and then they would be identified. And for example, we had at our first, we call it our child find, where after the first couple of weeks, we get together and put together a list of all those learners that we were unaware of, or they're having some pretty special needs that are struggling in the classroom. And at our first child find this year, we had 9 out of the 20 kindergarten through 5th graders. 9 of them were kindergarten learners that came to that child find meeting. So then we would go out and do an observation and make some determinations. We'd develop some criteria, which is what Miss Judy was talking about in terms of how we'd identify, and then we would talk to parents and talk to them about the structure of the program, what the benefits would be for them attending that program, and what skills they would acquire to be prepared and ready to continue on and be successful in the classroom. So it would work through our district intervention team, which we already have set up at the elementary level.
so when do you envision the first child being put into the program? Because, I mean, that's going to take time.
It would probably be 3 to 4 weeks into the school year by the time we get out and do the observation, because some of them just need a little bit of time to acclimate and to get used to the setting. And so by the time we had a couple weeks, we had our first child find meeting, then we'd go out and do observations that next week, and then we'd make some determinations and start the process. So it would be a few weeks into the school year before they started, for sure.
So I don't know, I mean, I talked to AJ earlier today, which is, thank you very much.
Yes, no, I appreciate it.
And so I did my master's thesis on grouping kids and how to just, and so my opinion changed after the research that I read, because I was used to be in favor of different ways of grouping, and I completely changed after that research. But anyway, my only
Can I ask you, when you say grouping by
ability grouping
ability grouping? Okay.
and other things, but ability ability mainly.
Okay.
Yeah. And this is ability, behavior, like developmental, it's kind of a lot of things, but I worry about equity issues, because a lot of times when you have children that struggle, a lot of times, not always, because we are not that diverse of a community, but a lot of times it ends up being socially disadvantaged, minority, English language learners, a lot of times in the group that needs special help, or whatever you want to call it, the extra needs, the developmental care, a lot of times it ends up being kind of getting those kids, it could be a kind of an equity issue. So that's one worry I have, but then the other one I have is labeling a child, but a lot of kindergartners, my daughter, for 2 months, she would not go. She just clinged to me, and everything. She'd be probably one that would be recommended to that, but she got over it, So my only worry is that it feels like once it started and once they're put in that class, I think it might be a little difficult for them to turn around and get back out. Because it's not, it's hard, 3/4 of the way through the year. I mean, are they really gonna say, oh, you don't need to be here anymore? Or are they just gonna say, oh, you're in this class? So I worry about that. But the idea that I love is hiring another kindergarten teacher, because when I was teaching, 2 kids made a huge difference. You feel every ounce of them being in there. And if we could reduce, have that extra teacher, reduce the class sizes, put the paras, and maybe even group the kids with those needs in the classrooms that have the extra paras. I don't know, I'm just offering some suggestions that I would like, that I would feel
So,
comfortable with.
Just to address one of your concerns then is how are you seeing, and actually Paul, and I don't know if this is from Jim, Paul, I would ask that you refrain from some of the comments, because I am actually very interested in Deanna's research
Who
and
said
some
anything?
information. I know, but I can hear you kind of mumbling under your breath, and
I
I would
didn't
ask,
mumble at all.
I would just ask that you refrain from that. My question is then what is the plan to, how are you going to track these kids to then put them back? I mean, how long are you envisioning? Because in some ways, I do actually agree with Deanna on this.
And so it's all
What is-
based,
What is your thought process on how long someone would be kept separate?
so it's all based on their individual skills and how soon they're able to transition. So one of the benefits of them being in a school setting is that as they're able to transition, they would spend more and more time in the general education
So they would,
classroom.
so in wherever we place that school,
Correct.
they would be moved.
They would be moved
Yeah,
into, and if they can
yeah.
transition in there and they need support and they transition in for periods of time and then they're pulled out, or if they can transition in on their own because they develop those skills after maybe 3 months, half the year in there, they could be spending the majority of their time in the classroom setting, in a kindergarten classroom. And so that would be the plan for them.
One idea that kind of, as kind of a theme, if there was a theme of what I feel like grouping should be, is the kids should be diverse abilities together for the most part, but I totally understand you have to pull them out to work on skills. You have to be able to do that. But what I believe that should be is pull them out with an identified specific skill and communicate that to the child and say, this is what we're working on, and when we have accomplished this, you're done. Because a lot of times, because I've been there, I've been the teacher in the, a lot of times it's just, you're the low group, you're the one that has a problem, we're gonna kind of try to figure out what the problem is, but you've got a problem. And it's not really communicated, this is what we're working on, and when you are finished, then you're out, to the parent and to the child. And I think that'd just be so difficult to track every single individual student. And then one other thing is, if they're at Lewis and Clark, and I always took my kindergartners to school myself, because I didn't want them to ride the bus. So all the parents are gonna have to figure that out, which is gonna be kind of hard. But if they're getting pushed in, I guess is what you would say, to the classroom for a period of time, I cannot even imagine, like, if all this developmental kindergarten is at Lewis and Clark, and then they've got somebody at Gate City that needs to be just kind of in and out, how would the busing and how would the parents know where they are, and how would that work?
So we've already coordinated with transportation, and so
To
they
be able
would,
to pull them in and out and back and forth to their home schools?
no, they would
That's
stay
the
at,
part
they
I
would,
was wondering.
they would stay at Lewis and Clark for the entire year. So they would be transported from their home school. So after the buses made their routes, they'd be transported from their home school to Lewis and Clark, and then they'd be picked up a little early and transported back to their home school. So they could ride their regular buses to their home school and be picked up and transported from their home school.
Okay, because that was my other worry, is once they're identified in the first 2 weeks of school, then they're permanently placed. And that's one thing that I am concerned about with ability, developmental, whatever grouping you're doing, is kind of labeling a child, and then they're kind of, there's a glass ceiling, kind of, you know? And it worries me in the first 2 weeks of school, then to put them there. And then really, I mean, once you identify the needs, it could be that they're not being pushed hard enough. It could be that they need specific help individually because they are struggling and they're acting out because they are struggling. It could be that they're not hearing very well, so they're acting out because they're not hearing. I mean, there's just so many reasons. And to have one student, one teacher in charge of all those different, that would be pretty overwhelming. But one other suggestion I talked to AJ about is that I know there are schools, and I don't know if this is something you even want to even entertain or think about, but there are schools where one interventionist is in charge of all of the testing for the entire school. And that's what they do. That's what they do. They do all of the testing, all of the benchmarks, all of the testing, the diagnostic testing, not universal screenings. We're not talking about the tester of the universal screenings. I hate those anyways. But I'm pretty sure everybody does. But the diagnostic, like the ongoing, ongoing diagnostic. And I was just wondering if if either use that teacher to reduce the class sizes to make it a little bit more doable, or use that teacher as an interventionist to go in and do all of the testing, just all of the testing. Because I have a friend of mine that teaches kindergarten. That's what she said is the hardest thing, is that she's trying to test the kids and she doesn't have eyes in the back of her head. They're bouncing off the walls. And, I don't see how a teacher can be, doing the testing and looking at them. But so I'm wondering if that help could be that they don't have to do that testing. They just have, they just can do those, somebody can do that for them, and they can spend their time on the behaviors, all of that kind of stuff. It seems like they would be able to spend their time teaching instead of testing, and, helping the kids to, and kids learn from each other. They model behaviors from each other, and I wouldn't want my child to be modeling the behaviors from, for the entire year of that. Anyway,
Of a
those are my
developmental group.
concerns. Yeah, because
Well, and then
there's
the only
just-
other thing that's coming up now isn't that a lot of time for a kindergartner to be on a bus? I mean,
It
have to
depends
ride
on
a bus 4 times in a
when
day?
where they're coming from. I don't know that anywhere in Pocatello is, I guess if they're coming from clear south of town or clear north of town, it could be a long time on the bus, but
We're
I don't think
about
it would
5
be
minutes.
excessive.
Yeah, we were about 5 minutes from Idaho, and my kids were on the bus for 45 minutes. But that's just how the bus route was. So I don't know if they went across town. I don't know how long that would be, but.
Their initial bus route would be whatever it normally is, and then they would come directly because they're coming back here anyway, so it would be pretty close. So as they're coming back here, it would be pretty much a straight shot from wherever their home school
Yeah,
is
and I
to
mentioned,
here.
yeah, I mentioned to AJ, I am 100% for hiring another teacher, whatever the teachers need. I just don't like this method of pulling them out of their neighborhood schools. Because I think it needs to be a pretty compelling reason to pull them out of a neighborhood school.
And I would say with this, based on this program and the needs of these individual learners, we're talking a very small percentage, 10 to 12 learners. There are significant needs. It would not just be someone who is clinging on to their mom and not wanting to go. We have those every year, multiple of them at every kindergarten. These ones specifically, their needs, they need more in terms of social skills, productive play. They would be learning a lot of preschool skills and things that maybe 3-year-old, the younger children that we would teach them that they just haven't developed, and they don't have that skill set to be successful in a classroom setting. And so it would take 3 or 4 staff members to try to assist these learners in a kindergarten classroom and to just be successful. as we started the school year.
Now, when you mention that, I think about the economies of this. I mean, you've got a budget of 131,000 for 10 students.
And I can tell
I
you,
don't, I mean,
based on, sure.
what
the
is this in other, I mean, have you seen this working in other districts? I mean, I know it's still pretty early
I haven't heard of it.
for full-time kindergartners, but is this?
I haven't seen it. We haven't specifically seen it. There are kindergarten programs that are around that are based on specific needs and skill-based programs. We have a couple of preschool programs that would be very similar in structure to what this would look like. We have one at Tendoy and also over at Lincoln that would be able to provide these services. But a lot of these learners, this is the first time they've come in. I mean, we aren't aware of them. They didn't attend any preschool. They didn't show up, but they didn't attend Lincoln and participate in the early intervention or Head Start program, and they're just starting in kindergarten, really needing some of these skills that we just can't provide at that level when we have 24 other kindergarten learners. And so it really does, in terms of resources, it really takes a lot more of our resources, because like I said, we're devoting 3 or 4 staff members to help one kindergartner be successful because of their specific needs and how serious those needs are at the school.
Yeah, I just would hope that they could stay in their neighborhood school and address the needs there somehow, like I said, with the teacher relieving all the teachers of their testing responsibilities. Something like that where we're really helping them in a different way, but I would hate to have my back turned and having these kids. I think that's really hard.
So
Dr. Howard, do you
I
wanna-
think at this point, Mr. Chairman, maybe just wait for the discussion as it comes up for potential action, and then you can revisit some of these thoughts or concerns. Because
good
now
on the
I
discussion.
think we're, getting
I
just
think I've got.
a little bit of a review each time we talk about it. So maybe we could move forward and then come back and see what a vote might look like.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, next, Sue Pettit will report on the following: Policy 8303, student injuries, illness, and medications, first reading, out-of-state overnight travel request and camp request.
Okay, so we talked about this particular policy and adding the language so that we could have an opioid antagonist in the building to be able to use by trained people. There was some discussion earlier in our work session about how parents would be notified, and that's going to be addressed later in a policy that Dr. Howell will be talking about. But we're asking for a first reading for this particular policy, and we literally copied this sentence from the policies that we've had. So, and then out-of-state overnight requests, we have a couple. One for FCCLA to go to the national conference, and then one for Physics Day. The Physics Day one, we have another school already going. He just got his in about 6 hours late, so we couldn't get it on last month's board agenda. And then, last but not least, we have proposed camp requests, and you have an addendum, and the difference between the two is one of those volleyball camps got put in there twice, and so on your addendum, it's been struck out.
So curious, where are these Highland basketball camps going to happen?
Good question. Some of them are going, the MEC has done some work around for us. The other schools have actually offered their gyms, a couple of them, and some of them we're still looking for good spots for.
Gotcha.
So, okay, and that's it for me.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you. Okay, next topic is on the agenda is the business operations, which will be presented by Jonathan Balls. He will report on the following: Highland High School update, bid awards, request to bid New Horizon Center security surveillance system, and surplus property auction. Is that it? That's it.
I guess all I got.
Okay.
Okay.
Dr. Howell asked us to, basically every time we meet, to give you a kind of a status update on Highland High School, starting with the immediate needs and going into the future needs that we have for that building. We did some power testing of the electrical wires. Had an independent firm come in and I think it's called an test. Jim, or Chairman, correct me if I'm wrong. Anyway, so they
A Meg home.
basically test the volts in each of them.
It's called a Meg home test.
Thank you.
It tests the installation of the wires.
Okay, thank you very much. And that came back very positive. There was one line that didn't pass, but it didn't fail. It was more in the neutral. And so that same company, we just thought we're just going to replace that as well. And so Idaho Power for the last 2 days has been working on some of their switches, and they're still doing that. We thought we might be able to get that power turned over to us yesterday afternoon, but that's still, they worked all today and still kind of upgrading some of their equipment there in our transformer on the east side of the back of that building there. As soon as, that should happen any day now, that we'll get that power and then systematically turn back on our power. And that'll be a huge benefit there to that building. And again, we've located the wire, we've located the water line, and that comes the opposite direction of the power. That actually will come from the west and go into the east side of the building, and so we'll have to cap that in the loss area. And so we're working with our Paul Davis and the structural engineers to kind of see where we can do that as well. We did find out through conversations with our Pocatello building inspector that they are now requiring that all of Highland High School receive a fire suppression system, basically call it sprinkled. The good news is that it's actually only the E wing and the auditorium that are not. And so we have already contacted 2 vendors to get quotes, one from Idaho Falls, one from here in Pocatello, to be able to expedite that and get that done so that doesn't hinder our goal to get back into that building by mid-August. Of course, the other component of that will have to have an active and functioning fire alarm system as well. So we're working on, making sure we have all the parts, as sometimes that's the lead time to get into those. You want to talk about, you've been involved with the staff and.
For the last week and a half or so, our staff has been in to the building and removing their personal items. And so we've given them a few hours last week, and then all day Monday, they had a virtual day for Highland. And so the teachers were in and took all their personal items. And now, I'm going to absolutely thank them, because by doing that, it expedites the cleaning. Paul Davis has a large crew in ready to clean, and they couldn't get that started until the personal items were out. So as of Monday at 3, all their personal items out. However, as they're going through cleaning, they're saying, today I went up and checked what they were doing, and there's this right here. We think this is their personal items, and we think they might want this. And so they're being cautious with things that they think they should be, and taking pictures and saying, can you ask the teacher, do they really want to leave this? And so we've been in contact with a couple of teachers, and nope, they really did want those. So I'm going to go pick them up tomorrow and get them over to them. And so then what happens next, the cleaning crew comes in, and they literally pull things out that cannot be cleaned in a reasonable cost. So piece of paper, they can't clean it. So how much paper is in a room? Is it printed on? Is it not printed on? How much is it worth? And they're literally going in and taking things that they know they can't clean out, and it's being laid on a large table, and they have a adjuster that comes in and says, this is $300 worth of stuff, and they're writing it on a board, room number, the amount, taking a picture of the entire table, and they're having me come up and check about every 2 hours today, just different, this is a normal room. This is not a normal room. What would you say this is? And they've been, I'd say one number, and they're usually higher than mine. So they're being fairly accurate with all of it, but they're literally laying every piece of everything they're taking out of the room.
And this is every room in the building?
Every room in the building.
Because it was all damaged by smoke and water.
Smoke, yep. Yep.
Interesting.
So
How about on the backside, have they started tearing anything down or hauling anything away yet, or?
So that's, no, not yet. It's still an active, private investigation by the insurance company. And so.
That's a fundraiser, by the way. There are people that are asking me for bricks, and I
Oh.
was like, I don't think that's happening, but.
Yeah. So no, and that's something that we're always asking about timelines. And, you know, we get some, and as Dr. Howell said, it keeps kind of pushing back a little bit, but we're still confident on our overall goal, you know, to get back into school. But we just, so no, that has not happened. Paul Davis are getting some quotes to see what it would take to do that, and we'll probably do that as ourselves as well, to have multiple options for that demo. And then that way, that'll help, you know, with the safety, you know, with the students and staff as they get back.
Are you aware of anybody going up there? I mean, I know that was one of the concerns.
There's a few drone companies maybe that we've heard,
Oh,
but
but you haven't seen.
As a whole, the fence has been keeping people.
Happy.
yeah, and we appreciate the community doing that, you know, because it's still a dangerous
Sure.
situation there.
I did have one teacher ask about the flood. I didn't really hear much about the flood that happened or the pipe that broke at Christmas time, but that was already being, you know, taken care of with insurance. And they said, why are they cleaning that room when that
And
room
they-
has to be, okay, that's already been.
Yep, we
addressed.
actually met
Okay.
on that today.
Okay.
So we actually that was a very, well,
I mean, that's just.
compared to
an
this one, it was a very
example
small
of
claim.
Cleaning stuff that is gonna be ripped out.
Correct. And we got, we had all the parties in there, the original adjuster and the cleaning, and yeah, they're not. That's-
Perfect, thank you.
And we are gonna permanently fix our problem on that east wall that, you know, our pipes are up in the uninsulated portion that we've always struggled in that building, so, that'll be fixed permanently there, so.
Yeah, that's brave.
So I'd ask Mr. Balls to make sure that as we went through this, that we inspect all those pipes,
Yeah.
since that false ceiling has been pulled down and the insulation, so that gives us an opportune time to get in there and make sure that everything is going to be up to performance standards from, you know, this point forward.
Mhm.
And then they'll start, you know, once they get all the contents out, then it's from ceiling to floor, and they'll just start cleaning that, and, you know, they'll crew up or man up and kind of go room by room and quickly knock that out.
So that content removal, I think they should finish B Hall either this afternoon or first thing tomorrow. So all of B Hall will be done, and then they'll start on ceiling.
They said it could take up to probably 2 weeks to get all the content.
So all the content's even out of E, or is it
Correct.
out of E?
Everything
Yeah.
has to be touched.
Wow.
That's great.
Yeah. Yeah, very thorough, very
Yep.
thorough, very great.
Yeah, yeah, that's,
They're doing really good. I do have note that the other cleaner up there is the air duct, and so there's a company with a large machine that's cleaning all the air ducts. So when we turn, you know, get power and we turn on the AC and then eventually the heat, which we will test in the midsummer, just because that heat releases some odors, and we need to make sure that there's none in there at all. Anyway, so they're cleaning up there as well. So now to kind of go, we kind of labeled this meeting Returning Home, August of 2023. We met with Highland administration early this week and basically came up with a whole list of different options, different locations, facilities for some of these displaced programs and classes, the band, orchestra, choir, weights, PE, obviously, all the extracurricular, the cafeteria. And so we're just now reaching out to these different entities and see, you know, do you have space for these different groups? And would you be willing to let us, you know, use these spaces for the next 2 to 3 years? And so, and then we've already planned to come back and meet again next week to again lay this plan to again minimize, you know, to maximize the face-to-face instruction, minimize the interruptions, but yet find a temporary home, you know, for these. And I think we came up with some really good options. So, and they're starting to pan out. And so, and then we'll update you on those. I think some of those plans, of course.
Classrooms should be ready though by August, huh?
Yes, that is, yep,
That's the goal,
What should be ready?
the classrooms,
the west side.
yep, the existing classrooms, yes. Yep, that's definitely a goal. And then just from our, now into the future, into the, for the next 3 years or beyond even, as from our previous conversations with the board, Dr. Hall has asked us to kind of look into different aspects of some future building, future financing, and basically trying to find the pulse of our community. Ms. Fisher is working on surveys to try to glean some of this information. I've reached out to a potential bond advisor to kind of run some projections, if that's something that the board wants to look at, so some bond rates, bond terms. Obviously, that's it's based on kind of our some of our current market values, and then what support we get from the state. And so hopefully we should have that information. Again, just kind of a projection, just get some numbers that we can throw around. Should have that, the first next week. So, and then as our discussions continue, if we need to have a kind of a special work session, school construction, finance 101 class, or at a work session, to kind of to help us all in this process. And I think
That'd be great.
That'll be handy as well.
Are you envisioning, because I know at least some of the things that have been misplaced, orchestra, choir, that are groupings of large, that's not something you can put in a modular,
Correct.
or is it? I don't know if that's even, I didn't think so.
Well, we've actually got a couple of large spaces that we're looking into, and one that looks very promising and one that looks almost as promising. They're gonna go look at it tomorrow. It just depends, we've got transportation to get
Right.
kids back and forth.
Yep.
Modulars, how fast can we get them here? And they have to have power, and they have, so we're starting the discussions, what do we have here in town first? And then if not,
Right.
we'll go to.
Because where would you put them?
On the practice.
And are these other spaces, are they something we'd have to rent? Or are they
That's
potentially?
That's what we're working on.
Gotcha.
But all covered with insurance.
Oh, would it?
Yeah, it would be covered with our.
Oh, okay.
There, yeah,
Okay.
all displacement costs should
Okay.
be covered.
I didn't know
But
that.
of course, we're trying to be good stewards of that.
Of course.
that money as well.
Oh, yeah, of course.
Work that.
I do have a question. Now I just forgot the name of it. The Gateway Building.
Uh-huh.
That was-
I would ask if you have talked about putting students in there and not it's currently being used for, so that we can have a place for them.
So the problem with the rooms in the Gateway Building are they're small. So they would not, I don't think they'll fit a choir or a band. The weight room would have to go in the basement, and
Yes.
the rooms in the basement are very small. So I don't know that's what I say, we're just looking to see that it's not off the table, but
Because
it's,
maybe we
it's not
knock
an
out a
on.
couple walls, we've got to make it work.
we
They can't
can if they're
have
not weight
weights.
bearing. That's,
Yeah.
so,
We
I
can't
mean,
just
it's,
not
We
have-
talked about that
Right,
as well.
right,
We definitely have,
right.
yeah,
it's definitely not off the table. It's just not, that's not the decision that's been formalized yet. We're just investigating all the places we have here in town, and we've had lots of private companies, private businesses, private entities offer. And so we're just trying to find what's gonna fit the needs best.
Yeah, I guess the two things that I would hopefully want is as much on campus as possible.
Absolutely.
So I wouldn't want anything else in that Gateway other than students. That's just my opinion.
If the rooms fit the programs we need there.
Yes.
Yep,
But for whatever they need, but then,
And Sue and the whole team even thought of, okay, can we move a regular classroom over there and maybe use their larger classroom, so even just swap some again.
yeah, just however it
Yeah.
needs to be
That is
used.
definitely
Yeah,
our
just
goal.
the-
Put that on the table as part
Absolutely.
of the classroom.
The
Oh.
problem is, like I said, it's just the size of the rooms, and even moving classrooms from Highland, the classrooms that we have available, there isn't any classrooms big enough over there for band or choir.
Oh,
And so-
I wouldn't necessarily
Right.
say it would have to be band or choir.
Right,
I'm just saying to
Absolutely.
alleviate
Yep.
any overcrowding or any needs. And then, so that's what,
Yep.
The challenge with these groups, they all have equipment, right?
Right.
They got band, they got
Where do you
weights,
store it?
They got mats for cheer and wrestling, and And so that's the size.
Not
They're just,
bodies,
it's just big group space.
Yeah, it just seems
So-
like at a minimum, we could have the weights, because that's like a class.
It is a class,
during the
it just
day.
depends on, like I said, right now, the small rooms downstairs, we'd have to figure out how, and
What else
is
could
it-
be done away with?
is it best, well, and is it best to put only one program there where there's only one teacher there? Or if we can get weights in a building that has band and choir and weights and dance all in one building, and that way there's more than one teacher there, and so they're not isolated by themselves too. So it's,
Upstairs, there would be teachers though, correct? If we're using the entire building.
if we needed it, but right now, the classrooms we need are band and choir and weights. And so, and gym classes. And
What are
so-
you envisioning, because obviously parking has been reduced.
Mhm.
Because they would need the gateway for parking too.
Well, I don't know about that, but I'm just saying where the construction and, I mean, that's gonna be,
That will be continued
limited.
to be
That's next week's discussion.
a challenge,
okay.
yeah.
I mean, I trust you
We've
guys
talked-
have every.
We've talked a little bit about it. It's, like I
We
said,
can
we
rent
just
the
have to reach
6
out to some of our
acres.
community partners and see what we can and can't
Right.
work out.
Yeah,
So.
I mean, we could,
Shuttle
if they
from the
won't
wellness
sell us
center.
the 6 yeah.
Or,
Yep, exactly.
or the backside of the fairgrounds.
Yep.
Right.
So, I mean, there's, but we just haven't, we haven't reached out to
Right.
that.
Mhm. Yeah,
Again, we'll try to make it the best we can, but it won't be perfect. There'll be a
Mhm.
little inconvenience. You might have to walk a block or, or so. or
Barefoot in the
ride a
snow.
bus.
I know.
All uphill both
That's right.
ways.
But it will be
Holes in my
better.
shoes,
you know,
yeah.
try to
Thank
make
you.
it the best out of it.
Brings a whole new meaning to senior parking.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
and then,
Makes it more valuable too.
Yeah, it does, it does.
yeah.
So, yeah, no, be aware though, yeah, we're planning, we've got another meeting already scheduled for next week, and we all had homework when we left this last meeting to go call and find good information, so.
I think if the board would provide us some direction, so it is my best guess that there are really 3 options here. One would be to take the replacement money and put it into the existing facility and not look at a bond or just build with what we have essentially. The other option, as we talked about last week, would be look at property in a new build and take that replacement money, put toward, and then look at that bond. And that's why I've asked Mr. Balls and Mr. Smart to look into all of the intricacies of what that looks like. And, with the stabilization fund, that state support on a bond, and, there's been a lot of talk recently, and even in the polls today, that some of the districts are looking at a school plant facilities levy to, come in at that lower level of passage rate. But when you do that, then the offset to that is that you can't take advantage of the bond equalization, which I think Mr. Balls mentioned somewhere in the neighborhood of 20+%. And so when we're talking about a bond, I think, what we may save on interest in one way, maybe we pick up in state support in another way. So those are the finer details. And then, of course, in my mind, the third option is that we take that as replacement money and then maybe look at a smaller bond and look to expand the footprint to Highland High School. Certainly with that is some parking challenges that I know Mrs. Pettit mentioned parking garage. There is the property that we own down the street, just there on Olympus and Chubbuck. What's too far? What's a shuttle run look like? So I think there are just a lot of options now. Well, not a lot of options, but a lot of detail or complexities to the 3 options that we have. Unless the board thinks that there are others, which I would certainly, we'll take those and we can run with them. But I think it's important that we have that detail before we extend ourselves too far with, possible questions that we don't quite have the answers to.
One,
Well, I
one,
haven't heard a lot of support for a new school.
Oh, okay.
I have,
And so
I have.
I think, and as I've talked to Mrs. Fisher, we're looking, just to do this in-house seems a bit overwhelming, and I don't know that we have the expertise to pull maybe our bias out of it. And so we would look at some sort of a consultation with a group that does this for a living. And I think maybe last week I may have misspoke and said, oh, yeah, we can do that. But when, again, we think about the complexity of even a survey and what questions do you ask to get the best results so that you know can be informed and then move forward.
And then all of
certainly-
it could go to, you know, when it comes time for the vote.
Yeah, it could
It-
really go
yeah.
the other
Oh,
direction.
I totally appreciate that this is not complex. The reason I appreciate you wanting to, because I want to make sure we've looked at the options. I want to
Absolutely.
make sure that 10 years from now, 20 years from now, someone doesn't look back and say, why did that board not at least do their due
Right,
diligence?
why did they
Sure.
not build a school that was 20 to 30% bigger for future growth, you know? But one thing that I would like to, in all of the research, I would like to make sure that we're not looking at a school with all the massive sports facilities necessarily, because we do have Holt Arena. And so there's that, but also each individual high school does currently have a football field for practice. So I mean, I want to be careful and, you know, and frugal and everything like that. So I want to make sure that, can we do partnership with municipal, with the swimming pool, with the, you know, I would love to see, you know, swimming pool, field house for the high school, but have it be owned or maintained by the, you know, city, and used by the city, and then maybe baseball diamonds, you know, in a circle around it, like something like that, where we're using it to bring people here to Pocatello as a venue, but not just a narrow-minded of what does a high school cost? Like, can we do partnerships of kind of broader community needs? Of maybe some, you know, pickleball, tennis courts? I mean, I'm just throwing that
Ultimately,
out.
though, we will need to go to our voters when it comes
Absolutely,
time
but I would
for
like that to
support.
be a part of the research and discussion, so that we're not asking the voters for a whole bunch of money that we may not get approved. If we could go to the city and maybe coordinate, so we're not having to ask for
Are you
so much.
allowed to do that, though?
Well,
Go ahead,
that's
Mr. Wall.
kind of,
Well,
We
Hallowell
had
I
that
don't have the
issue at
ans-
Pokey with the
Hallowell
parking
Park.
lot. I mean, there was.
Correct. I don't know
We
the
own the
answer to
ground under
that.
Hallowell Park.
Correct. And so there are definitely agreements and arrangements that we've come
Right.
into that. So we'd have to explore that. That's my question. It's like, oh, I just need to double
'cause-
check because we're commingling funds, the
Yeah.
school, the
Oh,
city, the
exactly.
county. You know, so we might have to have our own facility and then, okay, yeah, you can use it for this trade-off of,
Mm-hmm. Well,
you
and
know,
in
like we do
public-
Hallowell, like we do some of these
Yeah,
other.
Hallowell is a good
spaces.
example,
Right.
but you can, a public-private partnership where a company that actually knows how to maintain baseball diamonds or swimming pools, or they maintain it, because that's what they do. And then
But who pays for that?
after that, well, because they would charge admission to the pool all summer long. And
Not gonna
so
pay for a
they
pool.
get all the money for that up until they've met their needs of their upkeep. And then we get anything above and beyond that. And if we get nothing, we have a beautiful facility that's being paid for and upkept, not like some things that are not.
What about
I'm not gonna say more.
private donations?
So, you know, early on, when we were just coming out of the gate, out of this, you know, traumatic event, and we said, no, hold off on the donations, because, you know, if we're looking at $10 or $20, maybe we do that when it comes time to, you know, brick a courtyard or something. But I think even as we look to some of our businesses and corporations here, if we were to say, yeah, would you like to support? I think, again, that needs to be a coordinated effort, not just a little here and a little there kind of thing. And
I mean, like, big, like, because Highland has some very known sports professionals, not naming any names.
Yes,
Well,
right?
that have offered.
Yeah, so when would, I mean,
So if those were to come our way, now, Mr. Balls mentioned to me just today that he heard something over the weekend. I too have heard,
I
you
know,
know,
I
some
probably
different
heard the
things,
same
but
thing.
if someone were to come forward, we would never say, oh, no, just, we're not interested.
So the
No.
answer is yes.
Yes.
We would certainly
Universal
be
yes.
open for discussions,
Okay.
very much so, yeah.
Okay, I'm glad to hear that.
Definitely, that's definitely.
Yeah, because I
Because I
heard that
think
rumor
everybody
too.
would-
I'm like, I don't think that's.
Because these are community centers. I mean, whether you're talking Pocatello High School as an auditorium or Century High, they've rented out their auditorium, they've had different events, the Nutcracker and so forth. And so these really are, they're community centers. They're not, if we don't think of them as just the ownership of the individual school. And
That's
so-
what I was hoping for with the idea of, what does our community need? Is
Yeah.
it baseball diamonds?
Yeah.
Well, they don't have a football field there. Let them keep their football stadium, and maybe if that's a middle school,
Yeah.
or
So,
something, I'm just.
Again, yeah, that's, I think one of those, that connects well with one of the options if we were to look at the new building, then what do you repurpose the existing building as? And even as we move forward, again, we're talking 2, 3, I don't know how many years, but we still have, we're in the business of teaching and learning. And with that, we know that for a time, we have to make that school functional. And then what we determine as a board and a community to do in the meanwhile, certainly that can be many, many discussions and perhaps public hearings or special meetings to take public input, I should say. And I think that's a good way to go. So that would be my recommendation.
And I am so appreciative of this really as quickly as you have been able to get the kids back in there. That's so important, and I just really want to emphasize using the gateway, using everything that we have so that the Highland students aren't turned away. That we are able to maintain the 5A with that school, just whatever it was before the fire, so that it's not, everything isn't just kind of turned upside down. I mean, I want to make sure and I think I appreciate that, and
Yeah.
I'm sure that everybody is
I'm just,
appreciative of that.
maybe, because I've been through this process before, again, just as always, if you hear rumors, I mean, you have access to our personal numbers and emails, and so please, hey, I heard this, what is it? And a lot of it, and Ms. Bennett and I, a lot of it is regarding this, the insurance and this investigation is like, oh, I don't know yet. That is, unfortunately, that's some of our answers, but as soon as we know, we'll let you know. But if you hear any rumors like that of any sort, please, as always, you have access to get the information that at least that we know.
Yes, I'm really sorry, I have to go. But,
You're gonna miss all the good bids. I've got, just kidding.
I'm out.
Okay.
There's fruits and vegetables and
Yes, and bread.
bread.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
about the bread.
So
Okay, you heard that.
That's it, but I do wanna, can I just say my vote on anything else?
Can you
or-
call in? Would you
I
be
can
available
call in.
by
I
phone?
can call in,
Okay,
yeah,
Or we would call you
yeah,
when we get to
call me, call
okay.
me.
I'm like, you don't know what to call it.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
See ya.
That's right, and if anything else on Highland, I didn't mean to jump to the. You
Can't
want
take
me to
anything.
continue then on some bids?
Sure.
Okay. I think, hopefully I have them in the same order that you have. There's several, a lot with food service. Again, this is our annual food service bid in different categories here. First one is for bread, that we invited seven vendors to bid, and we received bids from 2. And it's our recommendation that that we award the bread bid to Fran's Bakery in the amount of $89,826.75 for the next school year. Again, those quantities are just for bidding purposes only there. The next one I have on my list is the custodial bid. Again, these are just the various cleaning supplies, paper supplies that we would use. Again, we set a specific quantity so we could compare them equitably and be consistent among the bidders. Again, you can see those that we received bids from 12. One was unresponsive, meaning they didn't fill out their paperwork appropriately. And 5 vendors were not awarded based on the pricing. But you can see here, I believe there's 7 vendors that we would make a motion to approve awarding the bid for the custodial to these above vendors totaling the $143,000. Of course, if there's any questions, please let me know. The next one I have is for some different food items. This is kind of the menu items, so 345 different food items in varying quantities. 29 were invited to bid, received back 10. 2 vendors were not awarded anything based on on either pricing or product specifications or other considerations. And we recommend that the motion for the, we call them food items, be awarded to the list of vendors above, totaling this large, $2 million, a $2 million amount. And these are all very, we're very familiar with all these vendors. And honestly, we've had to use them all in these supply chain issues that we've kind of been going through the next couple of years. This next one I have on my list is for fruits and vegetables. Again, 114 different fruits and vegetables were asked to be to bid. 6 vendors were invited to bid, and we received bids from 2 of them, and that we'll be able to use them both in varying degrees.
The one, I mean, what could you possibly?
Correct. Yeah, it was just kind of
Go
one.
for the little guy there.
Yeah, just a little one item there. And so, and again, that's, yeah, and they had a little bit in the food item, so it's
I
just
saw that too.
something a little bit smaller there. So
That's awesome.
anyway, we recommend awarding the bid as it shows there. Okay, our next one is for milk. Again, we go through a lot of milk, 11,000 half pints of milk approximately. Again, we still, and we deliver those to 23 various locations. We sent bids to 2 vendors, received a response from 1 vendor, Medical Dairy, here in town. And you can kind of see the prices there. As you can see, we try to always do paper cartons. Sometimes during the supply chain issues, we did have to go to plastic. And, but, so that's why we bid out both of those. And sometimes, again, as you saw, that sometimes it's available, or if the availability is an issue there. But again, the motion is that we award that to Meadow Gold Dairy for our milk. And I think in the scheme of things here, we'll take a break and from food and jump into our parking lot edition at Pocatello High School. Does everybody have that? Mm-hmm. Okay. And this is one that we mentioned and was asked last board meeting, that we went out to bid and opened that literally just last Friday. 5 vendors were invited to bid. We received bids from 3. However, 2 were unresponsive. That meant that they didn't acknowledge some of the changes that were happened there. But I am happy to say that, well, we do know that this was the lowest responsible bid. And so we feel good with this number and awarding and making a motion to award this parking lot at Pocatello High School to M&S Development for $385,741.
Are they gonna try to get that done before school starts?
Yes, that is, yep, and yes, that is our goal, and he says he can do that, so.
Good.
Yep, that's our goal. Okay, back on,
So real quick on
Yes,
that
please.
parking lot, I mean, that's about 10% more than we expected
it is.
on the
it is.
cost. I mean, is that just timing and?
Yeah, and you can see how that kind of is the round number. That's always kind of the hard things when we set these budgets. If you remember, these were in the fall
Right.
time, and so if you go back through the several months, you'll see some bids go up or down. I can tell you that we're still under budget.
So is this just to pour or does this include all the landscape and all?
This
the
is
I
everything,
mean, this is
correct,
everything.
the landscape, this takes both sides, so even the existing parking lot
Okay,
and the
the
senior, that parking lot, and makes it one continuous entries on the side streets, so you won't be able to enter on these busy streets. Arthur, I think, is Garfield.
Grant,
Thank you,
Garfield.
sorry, Garfield there, and so it's just the side
Okay.
streets. Yes,
Yeah,
that-
because
that is all
just the
encompassing.
parking lot, but.
Correct. Nope,
not
it is all
everything.
encompassing.
Okay,
as
So
well
that
as-
for new sidewalks?
Yep, new sidewalks, because we can't have those curb cuts. The city had some input in there that did increase our cost just a little bit, but it'll be a better structure, so that way it'll be a new sidewalk on the Garfield side, on the school side, whereas now there's a couple curb cuts where the garage entrance was.
Very good, thank you.
Okay, just a few more back into food service, just to wrap up. We call this the small wares. These are the cooking utensils and different things. Again, we just always have done this. This falls well below what we have to bid, but again, we're being fair and upright, and I believe actually it's a USDA requirement that we do this. Again, we received bids from 4 vendors, and you can see when we need these items, we'd like to purchase them from these different companies there. So again, a motion to approve these bids as listed above. And then lastly, for these bids is the food service supplies. So again, this is some of the supplies that we use. We received bids from 12 different vendors. However, they all didn't receive awards based on pricing or quality or minimum order requirements, but we do recommend that we approve for the food service supplies the list of vendors that we've kind of used below. These are kind of the packagings, everything that we need to have to be able to serve lunch. Okay. That wraps up all of the bids. Mr. Chairman, if you're okay, I'll continue on to, we've been talking, and Mr. Smart also it mentions, and I'm here to ask that we go out to bid for a new security camera system which includes new data cabling and new cameras and the installation. We chose New Horizons because it's a secondary school that has needs of this, but yet it's small enough that we can test it. We can make sure that it's a good system for the rest of the district schools. So it's our ask of you that we be granted permission to go out to bid for new data cabling and installation of a camera system, and that we anticipate being able to show you those bid results in July.
So is the idea those cameras would be, the TV visuals would be in the schools, or they'd be here, or?
So all of the
that-
above, absolutely.
All of the above.
Yep, so it's basically, our current system is some of the cameras are fairly old, and we've kind of grown with it. So we have some cameras that are very old, not digital cameras, analog cameras. And then we have some that are very, pretty good. And so this would outfit the entire school with an updated system, and then have the capability to have on-site, to even have remote access to those cameras in the event that, we need to get our SRO or, other people access to these, kind of an upgraded system.
Understood.
And so,
The data won't be stored on the cloud because of the amount of data transferred back and forth.
Right.
So it's gonna be local, but it'll be
Yep.
available to all to be able to retrieve.
So then the idea here is this would be kind of the test school,
Right.
and then we'd roll it out. Gotcha.
and then we anticipate, at least we've asked the state, there is a line on there that we've asked the state if we could pay with this from ESSER money. And so as we have, about, where are we at? Probably 15, 16 months left of ESSER money that, this would be a good test and be able to see what we can do district-wide there.
Very good.
This is a recommendation from our security committee that we look at these kind of upgraded security systems. Okay, and then lastly, this is just our annual request as we have obsolete equipment, and it's pretty well gone through. If anything that through the teachers and aides, through the principals, administration, deem obsolete, that we would, it's our requirement by law to offer this back to our taxpayers, since it was bought with taxpayer dollars. And so we'll partner with Primetime Auction to have both on-site, so you can look at it, and then also online version as well.
So where does it go with the stuff that doesn't sell?
So it would go to the landfill. So,
Okay.
yeah, that's,
So good pricing is what you're saying.
it is, it is, it is. There's some good pricing. And then,
Garage sale prices.
yeah, and we are trying to enhance that, you know, as we have many facilities, many classrooms in the district, kind of try to get that word out, hey, I'm selling this table, does anybody want it? You know, rather than
yeah.
going through the auction, because sometimes that's happened, and so we want to try to minimize that as much as possible, so. But anyway, if our ask of you this evening is that we grant permission that we hold this surplus property auction, that second Saturday in July. Or first Saturday in July.
Okay.
I think that is all.
Okay. Thank you, Jonathan, appreciate it.
Well, did you want me? Well, I'll stay here.
Okay. Next on the agenda is employee services, which will be presented by Carl Smart. And he will be reporting on the following: Infinite Canvas, IC, Technology Department update, preliminary budget materials for the 2023-2024, and the emergency school closure.
Okay. Just a couple things about on item A. We're in the middle of doing our IC upload for the month of May as we speak. In fact, that's what I've been doing this evening, is listening to you on YouTube and doing my IC stuff. But our technology folks, our new technology folks, we've had a number of positions turn over, and we actually robbed a position from Irving, which they weren't happy about. But they have been doing a tremendous job on getting that Infinite Campus kind of prepped for IC submissions. And so, you know, we were a little concerned about our IC without some of our old staff, but they have been doing an awesome job. So kudos to them. Like I said, it's due Friday, and we're down to less than 200 errors as of 20 minutes ago, so that's good news. PV Tech, they're still working on getting our wide area network into that building. And so, you need me to get a little closer. I can hear myself just fine, so. But they are working on that, and they're very close to getting it done. I wish I had a date, but it's very close. So they were talking tonight about getting it attached to the fiber, and so they're that close. And of course, we have our annual Chromebook return from our students, and so there's going to be some refreshing done this next year, some Chromebooks and some computers, especially for the teachers in the elementary schools. So that's going to be something that will take some time during the summer, and of course, our cameras as we get into hopefully getting a bid on that for over to New Horizons. Second item on my section of the agenda tonight is preliminary budget materials. We covered this quite extensively last Tuesday, so I'm not going to spend a great deal of time tonight. Just to let you know that we've we have gone through and updated some things that were refined some items. One of them being AJ's budget for literacy. There we go. Thanks, AJ. And as we talked last week, there was also some concerns about some over budgeting of FTEs in some of the, in the fringe benefit accounts. And so I have gone through and cleaned those up. And so you can see that the fringe benefits, especially for medical and dental, are closer to those estimates that we gave you earlier this year. And so they're better in the way of prepared numbers. And so on the very last page of that packet is our where we kind of stand right now in the way of an appropriated fund balance. So that basically the changes we've done, and they're just there for you to review. And like I said, that we have been refining those numbers over the last week or so.
Again, appreciate Mr. Smart and all of his work. Again, our culminating event is our budget hearing, which is June 20th. Thank you. I knew you'd know. Anyway, that's our culminating event where we'll have our budget hearing and have everything as close as we can, at least for that day. It'll be as accurate as we can get it. So, and then it will probably change shortly thereafter. But
There are 2 dates in this school year that I really enjoy. My birthday and the day after the budget hearing. So, and also in your packet tonight is the emergency school closure related to the fire up to Highland, and that extra day that we took out of the calendar for the folks out to Century for that transition. So there's actually 3 days on there. And Renee, I think we're gonna have to probably redo that when it goes to the state. Had bad dates in it. It says February 21st and 24th and February
Oh,
28th.
yeah.
So I noticed that tonight. So we'll have to have Doug re-sign that and send it off to him again. But we will ask you to approve the resolution tonight in your business, and so we can send it all off to Boise, and they keep track of it, because we got a request of from somebody over there asking us to make sure our calendar, which we send through IC, reflects these emergency closure days. So they do use the data, so that's good to see. And we will make sure that happens. And
So these are not days we have to make up, or hours, or, I mean, that, because it's,
it's my understanding, and Superintendent Howell, he has had more conversations with the State Department of Ed than I have, and so he probably has a better idea of what they're expecting from us or not expecting, so.
because what, we've had 6 between snow and fire?
So there were
Brimstone.
5 snow days, and then we had just a little bit of wiggle room in both secondary and elementary. At the secondary level, well, at both levels, then they grant you that flexibility of about 11 more instructional hours. And so I think we're gonna fall very close to that, but then in talking to Superintendent Critchfield, she assured me that whatever we need to make the school year balance and work, that her department would be willing to help us with that.
And with that, that concludes my section of the agenda tonight, unless you
Okay, thank you.
think I
Appreciate
need to
that.
pontificate on something else, so.
Okay, next on the agenda is human resources, which will be presented by Brenda Miner.
Good evening. Mine are pretty quick. Just the first one is staffing update, and I believe that it stays with the agenda when I talk about staffing update. We don't have as many to staff because I don't know if you know this, but it was in Idaho Ed News that Pocatello, out of all the large districts in the state, has the highest retention of teachers in the state of Idaho. And that is a huge compliment to our teachers, our administration, district, all of you. We went from, we were a district that went up to 91%. And out of all the large districts in the state, no one else was in the 90s. And so that's just a huge kudos to everyone in our district. And so that being said, with staffing, we have 7 elementary, 6 middle school, and 4 high school. So for this time of year, we're okay. My biggest fear of those, to be real honest with you though, in those openings is our special education. We have 2 in elementary, 2 in middle school, and 1 in high school. And those are the positions that are really difficult to find staff because they have a few extra guidelines from the state as well. They have to be within 1 year of being certified and being able to complete their degree to be able to be a special education teacher. Mrs. Harris has reached out to ISU as well, and for example, the people who fell in that category were 3, and 2 of them live out of town that fall within that year. So those things are, those areas, you know, I get a little concerned about special education. I did go over tonight with her, we met, and I went over some more candidates that have come in, looking at some options as far as where some of those people are as far as in their special ed degrees and those types of things for people coming into the district. The other thing that tends to happen, those may move around a little bit, just with in-district, we have some people in the high school that want to maybe go to elementary. We had an elementary person who went to Highland. And so when they have a K-12 certificate for special education, we see a little bit more movement in that area than we do in the others. So those are our staffing updates. Also, you have in your packet the request from the PEA to open negotiations at 5 o'clock on May 26th, and we will be ready to go. Mary Ann and I met today. It was great. We were able to count the cards out, had the 50+1, and we're set. So I know that they're having a negotiations 101 just to help inform their staff as well of what that negotiation process looks like. So I believe that's a good thing, so that
Explain to me
everyone
the card.
understands.
So the members of the union are voting? What do those
No,
cards?
They just have to have 50+1 of our teachers in the district to
Have
be
to be
able to do negotiations on their behalf.
Okay.
Okay? Sorry, thanks for
Yeah,
asking that.
good.
And then also the last one is just that you turn the authority back over to the superintendent starting tomorrow for hiring, so that we don't have to hire just once a month through the summer to kind of finish off the hiring process throughout the summer. And then on August 31st, it reverts back to you. And those are the things that you see through the HR addendum. Any questions? Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, next on the agenda is Superintendent's Report, which will be presented by Dr. Howe.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We're going to start with the board calendar. And as you can see, there's a jump from this Tuesday to next Tuesday. However, as we are looking at opening negotiations that Memorial Day weekend, we would like to get the board together for a few visits along the way, and then probably during and certainly after. And so if there's an opportunity this week, based upon your availability, maybe we could get together and talk about the direction and parameters that the board would provide our team as we enter. And so Ms. Johnson will be collecting some times and dates from you this week. Certainly we can meet early next week and into the middle of the week and so forth. So we can be very flexible based upon your schedules. But again, I think we need at least one, and then any follow-up questions that you have, we might schedule another before we head into that process. So Tuesday, the 23rd, Key Communicators Network. If the first two that would like to attend, Mrs. Fisher and I have talked about a couple items on that agenda already. Two of them could just be carryovers that we didn't get to last time. And then we always try to include an instructional or student component to that. And so we've talked about, and as you heard from our student rep tonight, the campaign against fentanyl. And I think we're leaning toward that, or maybe have some learners come in and talk about the academic championships and what it's like to balance, academics and activities. So those are a few ideas that we've been floating, and so we'll have that next Tuesday. Then you can see Wednesday as a placeholder for student discipline hearings. We'll know better by tomorrow evening where we're at for next Wednesday. With that too, maybe if we could couple that with a executive session for personnel, there's some information forthcoming from Ms. Johnson in regard to that request for an executive session next week on Wednesday. And then Monday the 29th, holiday, Wednesday, last day of school, and that would be our New Horizon graduation at the Wellness Complex, which we have been fortunate to have good weather for a number of years now. Then that would lead us into Thursday, which we would hope that good weather will continue. I've not looked at the forecast. When I looked at it last, it was right up until Wednesday. So maybe some of you are looking ahead and already crossing your fingers.
So are we camping that night? Is that, we don't have to go home?
Right. It is an earlier start with the 10 o'clock and then 2 and 6. And so it will make for a long day, but I'm sure we could work some breaks into that, and we'll have some snacks for you and lunch along the way. But it does make for a long day, but a very rewarding day. And then you can see that takes us out a month's time here, community prevention meeting. And then I'm looking at that Carl's favorite day. It's the 20th is not his favorite, but the 21st, he said, along with his birthday, those are his two favorites. So we'll see the regular board meeting on June 20th. And so that June 27th, we don't typically, or have not historically held key communicators during the summer months. So
no work session.
no work session in June, July, or August typically, but I think along the way, we may work a couple work sessions in to talk about status of Highland High School and provide you updates, get direction, and so I do see us meeting a few times along the way.
That's fine.
Okay, all right. Next up, I have a couple of policies for you. We reviewed these last week in our work session, just as information tonight. They're being presented for first reading. You can see on the parent rights policy, we have incorporated the language directly from the bill, which is now law. And so that outlines the parent rights that we will have each of our staff members review at the annual policy review, so they're familiar with these updates. And I think they are self-explanatory. There is one, Mrs. Judy had asked about the visits. And as Ms. Johnson and I looked that up, that is actually a policy in and of itself, and it is on parent visitation. And it is it's 3306, school visitors. And it outlines that process very well, just setting up appointments with principals and not to be a disruption and that sort of thing. Have to have ID to check in, which would normally be the case for any of our schools. So I think we've been able to pick that up through the other policy. Next up is research projects and surveys. That's a very short policy, but we are just wanted to put it out there that any surveys that are non-curricular, anything to do with well-being, health, screenings, as I mentioned last week, we have one from the dental community that would like to do some screeners, and sometimes they provide sealants and so forth. And so those sort of things, we would ask or the approval of the superintendent or designee. And so those are the two changes that we would like to make to policy to update with current law and statute. Mrs. Pettit also spoke to illness and medication. I'm going to take you back just one policy into the parent rights. And policy 8308 deals with that illness and medication. But in that final paragraph, it states that parents shall annually be notified at the start of the school year of any health services offered by private organization, including preventative health, wellness, screenings, medication administration, first aid, and emergency care. And that goes along with these emergency teams, and we would be very upfront about what that would entail. And then parents could notify us essentially if they did not want to participate or have their students participate in that. And I think Ms. Clark mentioned, how do you do that in kind of a real crisis or triage situation? But we also have SROs in many of our buildings in the secondary. And so they are equipped and they have been trained and they will do that in spite of what we do. And so I think our emergency teams, though, much like, again, as you pointed out, Ms. Clark, with the photos and media releases, there are so few students that do not participate in that. I think our principals will know quite well who
would have opted out.
Yes, exactly. Yep. Okay, so Mr. Chairman, those are the items for me tonight.
Okay, thank you. Okay, next on the agenda is public written comment pertinent to the agenda action items. I don't think we have any. So,
Get Deanna on the phone for action.
okay.
Should we put that she can hear? Yeah.
Hello, I've got you on speaker. I'm gonna put you up front. We're getting to action items.
Okay, we'll now move to action items. First on business is to implement a developmental kindergarten program starting 2023, 2024. Is there a motion?
I hereby move that board implement the developmental kindergarten program starting with the 2023, 2024 school year as presented.
Is there a second?
I guess I'll second.
I just had one other question. Go ahead and ask
Go-
for discussion.
Okay, is there discussion?
But I'll make this real short. So I know when you talked about teachers, is it a kindergarten certified teacher or is it a special ed teacher?
It would be, I guess they could be either. We don't have, it's a K-8 certification, so for elementary, so it could be a special education teacher or a kindergarten, but it'd more than likely be a K-8 certified teacher for this position.
Thank you.
Okay, any more discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I
I
Okay.
would say no, the way it
Okay.
stands right now, but I don't know if we can vote on hiring teachers and the teacher impairments, but I'm in favor of that, but just not the way that it's outlined.
Okay, so you're opposed?
Yes.
That motion passed. Next item of business is to hear the following policies on first reading. Policies 3304, parent guardian rights. Policy 6303, research projects and surveys. Policy 8308, student injuries, illness, and medications. Is there a motion?
I hereby move that the board hear on first reading the policies as presented. Policy 3304, parent guardian rights. Policy 6303, research projects and surveys. And policy 8308, student injuries, illness, and medication.
Is there a second?
I'll second the motion.
Any discussion?
I just have one thing that I would like to request. In the state law, it says that a public school shall notify a student's parents about the questionnaire, it talks about, or the superintendent, but then in the next paragraph, it says, a different type of a survey. It says, if the content of such survey, questionnaire, or screening regards an individual's student's sexuality, sex, religion, personal political beliefs, mental or psychological problems, personal and family information, or individual or family financial information, the public school shall provide the survey, questionnaire, or screening form to the student's parents or legal guardian in advance. The only thing I would like to be able to add into that policy is if it's those things that it specifically says in the state law that have to go to the parents first. I would just like to be able to see it as a board before it goes directly to the parents, because I would rather not hear about a survey from parents. I'd rather have heard about it before it goes to the parents, because this one specifically says it has to go to the parent first in the new state law. So I don't know if there's a way to add that it will go to the board and then to the parents, or not.
I'm not sure, where it's a state law, I don't know how we can change that, can we?
That's what I was going to say. It would be, we can check with legal counsel. I know on some district policies, it's different, but I don't know about state law. I don't know that we can supersede state law, which I highly doubt that we can. Sometimes in laws, there are flexibilities built in, but I just don't see that that's the case here. So what?
Yeah, it's pretty specific.
Yeah, right. So the board could hear on first reading. We can look into that. We can go for a second reading before adoption, certainly, or even a third. And that would give us time to look, or you can just, you already have a second though, right?
Mhm.
Yeah. So you could take a vote and then we can have our direction given us from that vote. Does
So if I understand this, I mean, this is, the policy we're writing is for anything but those subjects. Because those subjects that she listed, that's gonna go to the parent regardless. It's not
Yes.
coming to you anyway.
Yes.
Or you might hear about it, but it's gonna go to the parents first. Yeah, Deanna, I don't think that, yeah. I don't think we have a choice.
The first reading is just a first reading, though.
Right,
If
and
you
so
do,
what I would request is that, it just says, before it goes to the student, it would need to go to a parent. But what I would like to do is to have it come to the board before it goes directly to a parent. Because if it's about sex, sexuality, and that stuff, I want to hear it before.
I think the most you could ask for is that it's simultaneously given to us as well. I mean, I don't think you can.
I think the state law, it just says before they can administer any curricular student survey or, and then et cetera, it just says if it contains any of that, they have to get permission from parents. So they actually, according to the law, the parents have to give permission. And so all I am asking is that is in our policy, that the parents would have to have their express permission from the parents. But what I'm asking is that they present it to the board before it's just given to the parents. And that's not a part of the state law. And it doesn't say we can't fee a survey to parents. It just says that parents have to give permission before that is administered.
Right, okay, I have a better understanding of what your comment reflects, and I can visit with legal counsel. I can't, I just don't know. Without speculating, Mrs. Judy, I think we probably just better look a little deeper into that. But I do have a better understanding of what it is that you're asking. So I think we can pursue that. Again, first reading, we could definitely have that information for you before a second or even a third if necessary.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay, that motion passed. I lost my place here. Sorry. Okay, here we are. Okay, on the next item of business is to approve the out-of-state overnight travel request. Is there a motion?
Mr. Chairman, can we just clarify the vote? Mrs. Judy, you said aye, but I didn't know if there was a hesitation,
Oh, she said nay.
or did you say nay?
Oh, I guess if all you're asking is just a first reading, I guess I can just say yes, but I voted no. But if I'm just voting on a first reading and not implementing it, then I guess that's fine.
Okay, all right. I just wanted to clarify. I looked at Ms. Johnson and both of us weren't quite sure.
Well,
So
when I asked for opposed, she said aye.
Right, so I
Okay.
didn't know if I was opposed.
Yeah, you can just leave it that way.
Okay, so which way are we leaving it? I'm sorry.
So are you a nay or a yay?
A nay.
Okay,
nay.
all right, thank you.
She's a yay to the nay.
Okay, the next item of business is to approve the out-of-state overnight travel request. Is there a motion?
I hereby move that the board approve the out-of-state overnight travel requests as presented.
Is there a second?
A second.
Is there a discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Aye.
Was that a aye for, or nay?
I'm in favor of
Oh,
the
okay,
rest of everything.
sorry.
It's an A to the A.
Okay,
Sorry, it's just breaking up a little bit.
I'm sorry. Okay, the next item of business is to approve the camp request. Is there a motion?
I hereby move the board approve the camp request as presented.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, that motion passed anyway.
do you want to get her?
Did you want to approve the camp request? Deanna?
Yes.
Okay.
Sorry about that. Is that okay if you just say yes on the rest of them? Because I'm just having a little bit of trouble hearing.
Yes, that's okay.
Okay.
We got your direction for that.
Okay.
Thank you.
The next item of business is to approve to award the following bids: the bread, custodial, food items, fresh fruits and vegetables, milk, PHS parking lot, small wares, and supplies. Is there a motion?
I hereby move that the board award the following bids as presented for bread, custodial, food items, fresh fruits and vegetables, milk, the Pocatello parking lot, small wares, and supplies.
Is there a second?
I second.
Is there any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Hear none, that motion passed. Next item of business is to grant permission to bid the New Horizons Center Security Surveillance System. Is there a motion?
I hereby move that the board grant permission to bid the New Horizons Center Security Surveillance System as presented.
Is there a second?
I'll second the motion.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? I hear none. That motion passed. Next item of business to grant permission to hold a surplus property auction. Is there a motion?
I hereby move board grant permission to hold surplus property auction as presented.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? I hear none. That motion passed. Next item of business is to adopt emergency school closure resolution. Is there a motion?
I hereby move that the board adopt the emergency school closure resolution as it read into the minutes.
Is there a second?
I second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? I hear none. That motion passed. Next item of business is accept the request from the Pocatello Education Association to open negotiations for the 23-24 school year. Is there a motion?
I hereby move that the board accept the request from the Pocatello Education Association to open negotiations for the 2023-2024 school year as presented.
Is there a second?
I'll second the motion.
Is there any discussion?
I don't know if this is the time, but I would like to be there that night. I will be in the audience, just as a notice.
Okay. Is any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? I hear none. That motion passed. Final item of business is to delegate authority to the superintendent to, through the summer months effective, I'm sorry, I missed something. Okay, final item of business is to delegate authority to the superintendent to hire through the summer months effective May 17th, 2023. Is there a motion?
I hereby move that we do that. I can't find it on here.
The
Okay.
board delegate the superintendent to hire through the summer.
Okay. Is there a second?
Second.
Is there any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? I hear none. That motion passed. That concludes this meeting. I entertain a motion to adjourn.
I move that we adjourn.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. We are adjourned. Thank you.